Okay, so yeah, so it's 2 p.m. And I guess we are good to go. Hello, Ma, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was muted. I can.
All right. So I guess we are good to go. Yeah. So it's really nice having you, Mar. Thank you for taking time out from your very, very busy schedule to, speak with young lawyers like myself and members of our audience who are, looking forward to hearing from you and your wealth of experience. Um, so yeah, I'll just, say like something really brief about Mrs. Inunola. She is a partner at Denton's Acres Law, and she has a really, really amazing profile. And you do,
Thank
having reason to, the pinnacle of, an outstanding law firm. So thank you so much for joining us, Juan. And I don't know if you'd like to say a few words in terms of introductions.
thank you so much, Gregory. It's an honor to be here and to have this conversation with you. I think that first of all, I want to congratulate the new wigs. I know what law school was like, so congratulations to all the new wigs, whether on this webinar or those that would watch it later. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much again. And yeah, congratulations to the new weeks. It's really not easy, and which is why we have webinars like this that sort of, give you like pathway towards figuring things out. Because I would say that that was like something that was very, very difficult for me as well, trying to navigate my way. And thankfully we're having like a discussion that could, sort of simplify that process. You know. Um, so if there is one thing I'm actually interested in knowing at this point in time, it would just be understanding like the significant differences you sort of noticed, between the skills emphasized in law school and what you actually faced in legal practice. How was your sojourn, leaving law school, and did you have any shock in terms of how practice was totally different from law school?
Well, I'm having to cast my mind back. It's been a while. And I guess like a flood of different memories. I think law school was prepared me in terms of pressure. I mean, law school was a very high pressured environment. So that helped in the real world, that helped in practice. But in terms of the emphasis on cramming, case law and making sure you had everything that you could just spew out with a moment's notice, that was not necessarily my experience in practice.
Right.
In practice, it's unreasonable or impractical for you to quote case law off the top of your head, every single piece of case law that you have come across.
Definitely.
It's just not possible. So that was something that I think in law school was almost a requirement. It was something that we all had to do, but in real life, you can access your documents. You can go to your library and get the actual case law. You can go on the internet and get some more information. But I think it definitely did help, just the discipline of law school, the pressure of law school. It definitely prepared me for dealing with the pressures of practice, because this legal environment can be high pressure, in some instances. We're in a service industry, and sometimes you just have to hit, very, very tough times when it comes to deadlines and things like that. That's, I guess, what stands out the most for me, yeah, would be the theory of things in law school, and in reality, you have a bit more support, and it's a bit more business focused, in reality.
All right, all right. I mean, I'm actually quite interested in like the law school you went to. Which of the law school campuses?
Right. I went to Buari for bar part 1, and then I was
Okay.
on the campus for bar part 2.
Oh, okay, okay. So we share a certain similarity. I was in Lagos too at some point. I needed, yeah, but that was quite the experience. And in terms of like practice generally, would you say you sort of hit the ground running? Were you
Oh,
your
yeah.
first experience, was it something that, was like, oh, here's our case, here's the case file, go figure it out yourself, or was there some guidance and
Oh, I see. Well, I think so I started my career here. At the time, we were just Adequate and Caxton Martins, Agua and Shegun Ikas Law. And so I was here for my NYC year, and I wasn't just handed over a file and told to figure things out on my own. I had a lot of support. In fact, I don't know that I would have survived the early years without the support that I was giving here at the firm. I was in the energy team, and that was something that was very new to me. I wasn't very familiar with the terrain at the time. And being, it's, oil and gas specifically is very technical, and you don't really go into that much detail in law school when it comes to technical practice areas. So for me working in energy, I did need to learn a lot very quickly. But I was definitely, I had the support I required. That being said, I was very, very quickly sent off on my own to places like the DPR at the time to make inquiries. And it was tough. It was scary. I cried a little. I prayed a lot, but I made it through. I think, even in trying to figure out where the DPR was, that was tough for me, but I did it, and it was fine. And within a few short weeks, everybody at the DPR knew who I was. I knew who I was going to see when I was going to see the person. I didn't need to be double screened to get in. And so, I guess that's just a lesson in persistence and, overcoming your fears. I did not think I had I was a copper. I didn't think I had what it took to walk into the Department of Petroleum Resources and ask questions. Who do I know? But after a few tries, it became, second nature. So yeah,
okay.
that
Well,
was my
that's
introduction
because
into
I
my
mean,
legal career.
okay, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, speaking on confidence, it was for me, it was one of those things I like when I did like an inward reflection, as to like how I would navigate my career differently. I'd be like, that is one thing I would have, worked on. Having that confidence to, approach new situations and, letting myself make mistakes and, crying if I have to actually. Um, but yeah, it's good to learn that you have all of that. But if you were to cast your mind back to like a challenging situation you sort of encountered earlier in your career and how you overcame it, what would that be, and what lessons would you see you sort of took from that experience?
I think that, being a young lawyer in a law firm, and by young, I mean NYC, I mean being an associate counsel,
Yeah.
you are most likely reporting to a lot of senior lawyers on different matters at different times. So trying to navigate, who to say what to when, who to deliver what assignment to when, how to prioritize your work, that can be very challenging, especially if you don't have much visibility on the final points of those instructions, which is a lot of the time the case. As the young lawyer, you're probably giving some research work to do. you may or may not understand the full extent of the instruction. So I think for me, managing multiple supervisors, that was difficult. But communicating my challenges. So telling one supervisor, oh, I'm kind of working on this for this person, and I know you've told me to do that. Can you give me some guidance on how to best deal with this? I think communicating that and speaking up and not being afraid to ask questions would definitely help. I for one would always advise any lawyer, young or old, please ask questions. You can never ever lose out by clarifying and clarifying and clarifying over again. I ask a lot of questions. I require questions to be asked of me, because that's the only way you can move forward. And I learned that the hard way. I think, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You think that you're coming into this environment, you're coming into work, and everybody thinks you have all the answers. Nobody thinks you have the answers. You just come out of law school. Nobody's expecting you to perform magic. All they're expecting is a teachable spirit, an enthusiastic mind, and the willingness to do the work. You cannot be an expert as a young lawyer. That is an unrealistic expectation. So
Yeah.
you just sort of not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to clarify, not being afraid to communicate your challenges, I think helps. But for me, the really sticky issue was definitely having to navigate all of the work with all of the supervisors. That was tough, especially when you throw in going to the DPR multiple times a week. And you know what Lagos traffic is, and you have a deadline in the office, just mixing all of that up was very, very interesting times for me. Absolutely.
And you
Yes.
keep mentioning DPR, which is rather,
Uh,
amusing. But I
yes, the
mean, thankfully,
holds a very special place. I know now they're, NUPRC and things have
yes.
changed. But back then, the DPR was very special to me because it was my baptism by fire.
Oh, I mean that's great to hear. I mean, like for me, if I were to say one mistake, one challenge I had to overcome, it would be learning how to, work with templates. So for me, it was easy to just get a template, work off the template, but not take my time to sort of review. And I think one lesson I've learned is like control find is your friend. Like
100%.
once you once you use the templates, just try as much as possible to, find keywords from the previous draft and ensure that, the draft you're going to be transmitting to your senior colleague has no word or no reference to the earlier draft you used, you know. So that for me, I had to learn that. But I mean, I guess we grow with each mistakes we make.
You sound like you learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, thankfully we move. So another really important thing for lawyers and particularly young lawyers is always networking. And for me, this is actually a rather personal question. How important is networking for a successful legal career? Because people always have, the perspective that you have to put yourself out there. Do you really have to put yourself out there? What's your perspective, and how do you sort of go about, building networking, a good network for a successful legal career?
I think that generally speaking, networking is very important. Now focusing on the legal context, like in the context of your legal career, what is networking really? It's meeting people, it's making new friends. Let's simplify it. That's what it is. When you are now in a professional setting, you don't necessarily call them friends anymore. You now call them colleagues. So networking, meeting new colleagues. Now, why is it important? Collaboration, teamwork, very important. Networking can be internal and it can also be external, because meeting people and making connections can be internal within your organization. When you're working across different teams, when you're working even within your team, you are networking, you are building relationships, right? So if you take that in the external context and making new relationships and new connections outside of your organization, what does that help you do? That helps you gain access to perhaps more information, more templates that you might need at some point during your career. You're more likely going to hear about legal events, legal opportunities,
Sure.
new software, a lot of information, because you have extended yourself and you have expanded your circle of influence. So I do think that networking is crucial to your legal career. I would say that it's something that should be prioritized. Now, as a junior lawyer, I think it's important to balance your technical skills with networking, because there's a tendency to reprioritize that. For you to be able to project yourself as an expert eventually, you would need to have a lot of substance. So there has to be a very fine balance between building your technical skills and increasing your network, right? Because you also want to meet people and have something intelligent to say to them. You don't want to meet people and not have anything to say but who's playing football this weekend. Whilst there's no problem with that, if you are trying to build yourself in a professional setting, you do need to be able to speak about professional things at some point. You know, whether you're an Arsenal fan or a Manchester United fan or a Chelsea fan or a Barca fan, those things are nice. You know, those are the openers. That's how you get through the door. But to stay in the room, you need to bring a bit more to the table. And that is where you need to build your technical skills. So yes, networking, very important, crucial. But I don't think it should be looked at in isolation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
And it can be difficult meeting people. It can be difficult. So I feel you. But I think, again, with persistence, perseverance, you cry a little, you pray a little, and you push through, right? You get there eventually. It's tough, but with everything, you just keep pushing and you get through.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And I mean, I would say I align with your perspective on networking. I mean, it's crucial at the end of the day. Because personally, I sort of have that cringe in sort of posting about, so for example, so social media networking, I sort of have that cringe in wanting to post, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, it's important because it's sort of, it's part of your brand and your identity, and it sort of exposes you to opportunities as well. And also being and like a young lawyer, particularly for lawyers who are trying to build their career in the respective firms where they're in or where they started, like you. It's always important to do that because you sort of expose yourself to potential clients and make headroom for yourself. So yeah, thank you. Um, and talking about, being like a valuable asset to, to your law firm, which is like the next question. What ways can, lawyers establish themselves as valuable assets within their law firms early on? So like you said, you started out with Denton Akers as an NYC associate, and you sort of had to rise through the ladder, go through the various ranks just to get to where you are at the moment. How did you, what sort of assets did you bring on board? How did you leverage your assets? And, just walk us through.
Okay, so I'm going to answer your first question first because I'm not quite sure how to answer the second question, but hopefully I'll get there. I think that for you to demonstrate that you're an asset to your firm, you need to find ways in which you can stand out. I say it all the time. Everybody has been to law school. Give me documents, I can review it. Give me case law, I can look at it, I can apply it. But what else are you bringing to the table? What other skills are you bringing to the table? What natural talents do you have Are you good with numbers? Are you good with organization? Are you good with creativity? What other things can you bring to the fore? And how can you then present these skills to your firm? When someone brings work to you, do you run away and say, oh, I have so much going on, I can't take this on? Or are you the willing lawyer who's happy to do whatever they present to them, within reason, obviously? So having an enthusiastic attitude. Everybody wants to be able to work with somebody who is enthusiastic. You don't want to work with someone who's constantly looking like, woe be me, it's the end of the world. So you want to stand out, look within, learn about yourself, learn about what your natural gifts and talents are, figure out how you can use that in your workplace in a way that will not interfere or dilute the quality of your work. Try your best to be enthusiastic. I mean, for you to be a lawyer in the first place, you need to really want to be a lawyer. You can't blag your way through,
You can't.
There has to be a certain percentage of passion there and dedication. So this is where you need to lean into that. You need to be a cheerful contributor. You need to just be present, pay attention. I think those little things, and they may not all happen at the same time, but people are watching, people are noticing the way that you respond when a question is asked or when a task is given, the way that you offer yourself up for voluntary tasks. For example, there's a committee trying to sort something out. Who wants to volunteer? Are you one of the people that they can count on? Are you efficient in the work that you're giving in the first place? So little things here and there. By the time you put them all together, you're standing out. So you're the first person that they call for different things. They think of you because, oh, the last time I asked him to do this, he did such a good job with it, and he was nice. I think those are a few things that help you stand out at work. Of course, the quality of your work has to be sound, but on top of that, just having a teachable spirit. So, good vibes, I guess, is what they say these days. And just willing to work with everybody. I remember when I started out here, there was a group of us, the coppers at the time. For some reason, there were a lot of us. I think we're about 6 or 7. And we really, really, really relied on each other. To the point that when a senior lawyer wanted to give out a task, they weren't sure who to give it to. So they would just come into our room and just say, guys, do this, because we were all very willing to do the work. We're all very willing to work with each other and work with the senior lawyers. We were very, very willing. We're very excited about being lawyers. And we just wanted to do the work, I don't expect everybody to have that same attitude, which is why I started by saying, to be a lawyer, you have to want to be a lawyer. You can't just, let me manage this law. You cannot manage this law. You have to really be in it. So I think, just identifying what it is that you can bring that's different. It could be so many different things. For me personally, I think I do have a knack for organizing things. And I think that helps, it brings a bit of clarity to workflow. And so I think I intentionally or unintentionally bring that to the table when I'm working. And it may or may not have been noticed. But that's something that I do about myself.
Yeah, my apologies if this is me interrupting. I would want to second that. I mean, I noticed during our interactions prior to the webinar on how you sort of, when are we starting and, trying to ensure that, things were in place, even logging on into the meeting, prior to the start. So I would say within the, brief time, you sort of interacted. I can speak to the organization skills easily. Yeah. I mean, essentially, in terms of, I mean, we all know it's all work, and like you said, we definitely have to build substance. But I mean, all work and no play, as they say, makes Jack a dull boy. How do we sort of find a balance And I mean, oftentimes what we hear or what I hear essentially is that, oh, when you're starting out, don't expect to have work-life balance. Is that true? And generally, how would you say is the best way to, combine work and having time for yourself and personal development?
A tough question because again, as a young lawyer, you're working for everybody. So whilst I agree that work-life balance is very important, it's very important. I also am aware that it can be very challenging to achieve. But I think that thankfully, the legal environment is a lot more, the legal community is a lot more aware of how stressful the legal environment can be. And you hear a lot of people throwing out words like burnout, a lot these days, because we've all come to see that when you just push and push and push, at some point, your body gives way in one way or the other. It could be physically, it could be mentally. There was a recent case in the UK that made the news recently about a lawyer who was a high-flying lawyer. Everybody around her thought she was just go, go, go. She was the most efficient, and she dropped dead. And they say burnouts, and they say mental health issues, none of which were identified while she was alive. Now, I say that because work-life balance is something that needs to be addressed from the employer side and from the employee side. And I think that it's the responsibility of every law firm or legal practice to ensure that they are keeping an eye on these things. An enthusiastic lawyer would just want to do the work and push and push and push, because they may not be aware of the effects that the stress is having on them. For many reasons, you're young, so you're not feeling it as quickly or as easily as an older person would, right? But I think it's important to together work towards work-life balance. Burnout should not be something that is constantly associated with the legal industry. So I would say that, first of all, you as an individual need to prioritize your rest. The experts say, women need more rest than men. I think they say for women, it's 7 to 8 hours every day, and for men, maybe 6 hours, something like that. I think we should, as much as possible, prioritize investing time and resources on taking care of ourselves. So rest is very important. I know that, for some of us, we've had to walk through sleepless nights because, the project is ongoing and the deadlines are the deadlines. And that's okay every now and again, but you need to balance these things out. You need to make sure you're catching up on your rest. You need to make sure you're taking your multivitamins. I scream that all the time, multivitamins, multivitamins, multivitamins. Because of the stress that your body is going through, you might not realize when you're depleting your natural resources, your immune system is lowering and things like that. So you need to always make sure you are taking your multivitamins, you are trying to exercise. As lawyers, we're sitting in one spot, hunched over a computer for endless hours. You move around, stretch, your body around, move up and down, stretch your limbs, try to get some movement there. And please join a gym. When you join a gym and you have to pay for it, you will go. If you don't pay for it, you will not go. Pay for the gym, go to the gym, even if it's once a week, just get moving. Invest in your own health, right? And we talked about networking earlier. Networking doesn't have to be limited to legal events. It doesn't have to be you going for some professional association event or the other. It could be you going for your uncle's birthday party, because you will meet human beings there, and human beings own businesses or work in organizations. And those are the kinds of relationships you want to build anyways, right? By going to uncle's birthday party, you're networking, but you're also relaxing a little because you're going to have a drink, you're going to eat something, you're going to play, So I think we need to, as lawyers and for ourselves, take a lot of responsibility when it comes to work-life balance, and as much as possible, find a way around it. That would also mean that you need to plan your time very carefully. Because again, the work cannot suffer because you want to work-life balance. The work part of it is still there. So you have to plan time very carefully. You have to be very intentional about your deadlines, about your objectives. You know what tasks you have for the week, for the day, for the month. You need to be able to keep score. You need to be able to plan very carefully what it is that you need to do, and consider the timelines so that you can then squeeze in one networking event, one session at the gym, a couple of hours of sleep, so that everything balances out in the end. But that's something that I think is very important and needs to be considered very carefully, especially from the start of your career,
Yeah, I do agree with you. Ultimately, I think, like I had mentioned earlier, I think when you're starting out, you're sort of trying to navigate too many different things. So, I mean, first off is typically always, if I can say, just try as much as possible to get a hang of the work. And, once you're able to work and how you go, about, delivering on your task, then you have to also ensure that you bring rest on board and time to sort of interact with other people and stretch your legs. So essentially is always getting a hang of one thing and also ensuring that you create a balance. And essentially, like you mentioned, it's not something that is easy because your deadlines would always be your deadlines. They would hardly move. But ensuring that you are deliberate in finding time for yourself is highly essential.
Yes.
Highly essential.
I
Yeah,
wanted
thank
to
you.
quickly add very quickly to that point. If you're not well rested, you can't even give your best. You can never give your
True.
best
Yeah,
if
you
you're not
can't.
well rested. If you're so highly strung out, you've been up for multiple hours, you haven't eaten properly, you haven't rested properly, the quality of your work will be affected. So it's important in any case to squeeze in a little me time in whatever you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also hitting the gym to
Yes,
yeah, I
that's
would say
important.
that. Yeah, very, 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 very important. And having a good posture too. It's important for all of those reasons. Going on to something else, I mean, as law school students or as students in universities, we always knew the importance of, having mentors early on. Mentors because they sort of guide you as to, how to go about dealing with a certain type of lecturer, or, this lecturer likes a certain thing or would always bring out a certain question. So you essentially know that in school. But do you find that there is any need for mentorship in practice, particularly for young lawyers? And if you do, how can lawyers sort of identify and pursue opportunities for mentorship?
Absolutely. I think mentorship is very important. For when I started out, I mentioned that I got a lot of support from the firm. It was in the form of unofficial mentorship, I'll put it that way. You cannot do anything as a young lawyer without direction, without support. Because like I said, you're coming out of law school, you don't really understand the way practice runs or works. I remember when I started out here, there were at least, I want to say off the top of my head, I can remember of two senior lawyers who were more than helpful in helping me understand oil and gas, power, and navigate my knowledge of those areas, telling me what to read, where to go to for more information, how to come about the information, how to stay on top of the information and be able to get updates as they become available. So mentorship is very important. And I would definitely recommend it, especially even before, whilst you're in law school. If you can get a mentor to sort of give you some kind of guidance, 100% go for it. Mentorship is something that should be an ongoing relationship. And I don't believe that a mentor is someone that is limited to just your professional life. I, for example, would recommend aligning yourself with somebody that you think you have a similar pathway to. For instance, I have a family friend who was considering coming back to Nigeria from the UK to go to law school. But he had worked in the UK for a number of years, and he wanted me to have a conversation with him to see, you know, what his options were and if it was the right move to make. And I immediately thought to myself, I am not the best person to have this conversation with you for the singular reason that I am female and you're male. And that sounds very simple, but the reality is my pathway in life is very different to yours. The things that I have experienced in my legal career, which include getting married and having children, is very different to what you would experience. So I felt that he would be better placed with a male mentor who had had a similar experience and probably a similar pathway generally. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Yes, I
it's
understand.
important to get a mentor, but also get the right kind of mentor. I could have told him a lot of things. I could have told him my experience in Nigeria. I could have told him my experience in law school. I could have told him my experience in my legal career. But I was not convinced that it would have helped him in the way that he expected. But having somebody who had very similar experience, who also worked in the UK for many years, who also came to Nigeria to do law school after that, and is now settled in Nigeria, I think was a better fit for him. And I believe that they're enjoying a great mentorship relationship now, right? So lawyers should always, always, always have mentors that can help them out. Sometimes you just want to run something by someone, you know, you don't want to be judged. You don't want anyone to think that you're not on top of your game. You just want
Yeah.
objectivity, you want independence, you want clarity, and you want to speak to someone who you trust, someone who you respect, and someone who you feel safe with. And I think that mentors can do that for you.
I totally agree. And I mean, you've actually brought in a very, very, new perspective about, having mentors that have told a similar journey as you, and that's actually very, very important. Um, Permit me, to also introduce um, our guest for today as well, Mr. Mobola Jiriola, who's a founding partner in Allen and Brooks. Um, he would also be, joining us to sort of, give us insights as to how to, navigate that transition. So once Mr. Mubolaji is on, I would sort of engage him as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Val. Okay, hello, sir.
Hi, my very sincere apologies. Apparently MTN has issues with today, so please forgive me for joining late. My sincere apologies. I don't know if I'm getting old, but I was really struggling with the whole joining. My sincere apologies to the speaker, yourself, and everybody else. My sincere apologies once again.
No, not taken, sir. It's a sign of wealth not to be able to not to be able to use Zoom, and I mean, yeah. But thank you so much for joining us and gracing us with your presence. We're just talking about mentorship, and I was saying how we got very, very great insights from Inola, and she had mentioned that it's very, very important to get mentors that have or are touring like a similar path to yours. And I just wanted to, I mean, I'd like to get your perspective as well on, the importance of, having mentors earlier in your career. And if I were to introduce a new perspective to that question, it would be how much, like your personal experience with mentors, can you share, one or two, and how much it has helped you?
Okay. Firstly, hi to our speaker, Unioloa Adekonye. It's a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for joining us today. I've also listened to the things that she shared, and they're very insightful, and I've learned a couple of things from them also too. So maybe she would, even though I know she would disagree because of what she had said earlier, maybe she'll also be my mentor too, from the things that she had just said. So when it comes to mentorship for me, okay, so I have well, because this is my viewpoint. In seeking mentorship, um, some people seek mentors in terms of, oh, I want this popular person to be my mentor so that I can go around and say, this is my mentor. So you would realize that, for example, let's say I work in a tier one law firm and there is the named partner of the firm, and there is another partner who's not a named partner, and then the other partner seems to have more value in terms of mentorship, but because I want to go around and saying, oh, the named partner who is very popular in society is my mentor, people chase after popular people for mentorship. I think mentorship isn't necessarily about how popular the person is, but in terms of where do you see yourself in the next couple of years and where is that person currently? And that's very important in picking your mentor. And I think secondly is mentorship has to be an exchange of value. You can't be a time waster when you are engaging or trying to engage someone as your mentor. So I remember the first time I would ever have a conversation with my mentor. I have a couple of mentors, but I have a main mentor, and for 1 hour, he was just asking me questions, and I noticed that in summary, he was just trying to find out who is this person and is he worth me spending my time mentoring, or is he a time waster? Because you don't realize that I think with organizing mentorships in the past, we've had situations whereby there are mentees who go and meet mentors for money, who begin to offload their personal responsibilities on mentors. And I think that's not a very great way to engage in mentorship. Mentorship is basically, I'm currently here and I want to go in a particular direction. I see that you have gone in that direction and I want you to guide me through. I want you to share with me your mistakes. I want you to share with me your successes. I want you to guide me. That's how mentorship should be. And it shouldn't necessarily be about popularity. But in order to select a mentor, there's something very important, which is understanding and discovering yourself. Because if you do not know who you are as a person, and if you do not know where you are going, it will be difficult for you to pick a mentor who can mentor you in that particular, line of sight. So I would always encourage people that, especially as they're coming freshly into the bar, for those who are newbies, to go on a journey of self-discovery and really discover for yourself who you truly are. What are your naturally gifted talents? What are your naturally gifted abilities? What are the things that if they wake you up from sleep, you can do effortlessly? And what are the things that even if they put you in Harvard, MIT, Oxford, Yale combined, and they give you world-class Einstein and Isaac Newton, they are lecturing you and teaching you, you will still struggle with it. What are the God-given capacities? What are the things you've succeeded in the past? Look at your time from university, secondary school, and downwards. Go on a journey of self-discovery. Be self-aware. Know exactly what you are, what you possess, and where you are going to. That's very important. It's important in deciding if you want to be an entrepreneur or if you want to work, as an employee. It's important in determining your career path, even the kind of lawyer you want to be. Do you want to be a back office lawyer? Do you want to be a front office lawyer? Even as little as, oh, do I want to be an energy lawyer or do I want to be an entertainment lawyer? Because, for example, an entertainment lawyer, most times you require it to be a little bit extroverted, as opposed to being a banking and finance lawyer or an energy lawyer, for example. So you must understand these very little things about yourself before you can then go and say you want to pick a mentor. And I think finally is, please, when you finally get that person to mentor you, I beseech you by the mercies of the Lord, do not ruin the relationship. Do not abuse the relationship so that the person is hurt from that relationship and the person does not want to mentor anybody else. It has happened before where someone takes on a mentee, the mentee ruins the relationship, and then the person no longer wants to mentor anybody else again. So if you have a mentor, please take, and then lastly also, so let me just say this. as you are sitting with your mentor day in, day out, and you are extracting from your mentor, please ensure you also appreciate your mentor from time to time. Your mentor's birthday, your mentor's wedding anniversary, and things like that. Just to show that, okay, I'm drinking from your well and I appreciate you. And this is, I mean, it doesn't mean that your mentor cannot afford those little gifts, but it's just to show appreciation that I cherish you, I value you, and I appreciate your guidance. I think that's where I'll stop so I don't talk too much.
Man, thank you. That was actually, I'm also drinking from your well of experience, your wealth of experience as well. And it's great because you've mentioned really, really important things about self-discovery, and it's for me like very essential because you have to be true to yourself in in your pursuits, and when you do know yourself, it would help in terms of navigating your way. But if I were to ask, another thing about skills from you, Mark, in terms of the essential skills you think are very critical for lawyers to develop early on, what would you say those skills are? Like, what would you say, oh, as a young lawyer, you need to have this, and it's very, very essential for you. What skills would you sort of highlight?
I would say the first skill would be your communication skills. Because for the most part, the first interaction you'd have with anyone would be either verbal or written communication. So it's very important that you have very, very good communication skills, and it's something you should continually invest in improving upon. And then I'll also say emotional intelligence. This is something that not a lot of people have, I've come to find. And it goes a very long way. It goes a very, very long way. Knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it, when to be quiet, it's priceless. And it's really, in my opinion, should become part of the national curriculum from when we're in very, very primary school or something. We should definitely try to integrate that into our educational system. And the reason why I think it's very important is because as lawyers, when you're dealing with your clients, you want to demonstrate to your clients that you understand what their objectives are. You understand their pain points. You have a very clear sense of what they're after, what they're against. And so in delivering the work to them, you take all of this into consideration. When a client asks you a question, you can't just say, oh, this is the answer and that's that. You have to tailor it to your client's objectives. You know your client's peculiarities, for example. So you have to be sensitive enough to know how to deliver the work, the manner in which it should be delivered, and the things that you should be thinking about around the core questions that have been posed to you. And I believe that when you have emotional intelligence, it's very easy to pull into initiative, for example. It's very, very easy for you to be able to take initiative in a way that would help your client. You're able to give things a very holistic review, before delivering the work to your client. So I think it's a very important skill for clients. I'm sorry, for lawyers, my apologies. So communication skills, emotional intelligence. I think that we should also develop our analytical skills. And this is something that I think takes some time. The more experience you have with reviewing legal policies, legal opinions, legislation, and then applying it to legal queries, the better you would become, or the expectation is that the better you would become with your analytical skills. But it's something that you should definitely spend some time developing. You should also look into, we're living in a tech world right now, so you cannot ignore the artificial intelligence that is now in our midst. So I would say technological competencies should be something that you prioritize. Even if you're not a tech boy or tech girl, there are fundamental tech tools that you should understand, how to operate, what they are, how to use them, how to even to the benefit of your client, employ them in the course of providing your services. So tech is something that has become very important. I'm trying to think of non-technical skills here, because obviously for technical skills, it's getting your work done, it's, legal review and all of that. But in terms of the non-technical skills, I would say organizational skills, that's helped me. I think that once you're able to organize things, you somehow, for me, I just see things clearly. It's not a cluster in my mind. There's no clutter, there's no mess. It's just orderly. I know how to apply this here and there, and it just makes the work easy. It's almost helping me break down complex tasks into smaller bits. So I would definitely say organizational skills. Off the top of my head, I think that's what I would pose for now. Yeah, I think those are the key skills.
Thank you for that. Even I would say also like probably not like a soft skill to sophistication and class, because I noticed you refrain from using the term tech bro, and I was like, this is when you were talking about tech, I thought you'd say tech bro, but you said tech boy or tech girl, and I was like, okay, yeah. But essentially, I would say emotional intelligence is the one thing I'd like to pick from all you've said. Reason being that it not just only helps in your interaction with clients, but also dealing with your colleagues within your firm, and also knowing how to approach people. Because once you're emotionally aware, you sort of know how to influence people to sort of do things for you, or to sort of extend the deadline for you. And it's actually really, really powerful. Mr.
Sorry, if
Mobology.
I could quickly
Yeah,
mention one more. This is my
yeah,
favorite, and I
please.
can't believe I forgot it. It's
Sure.
collaboration/teamwork. And I think you was referring to emotional intelligence and applying that internally reminded me of that. I think teamwork is something that everyone needs to learn how to do. It's all well and good for you to work as a lone ranger, but I think that especially as a lawyer, you need to really understand how to work as a team and how to collaborate. It goes a long way. You cannot do everything on your own, and everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses. And that is something that I think, as in my first year, I explained how, there were about 6 or 7 of us doing our NYC at the time. We definitely leaned all the way into collaboration. We're all working in different areas of law, and any instruction that comes in, we're all huddling together and getting it done together, so that we had a very holistic response for the senior lawyer, And like I said, they couldn't tell who did what, because we worked as one unit. It was very powerful. And to this day, it's something that I remember like yesterday. Collaboration, teamwork cannot be overemphasized. It is very important to learn how to work as a team, both for your career and outside of work. Yeah, sorry about that. I need to mention it.
Definitely, that's actually very important. So thank you for sharing that. Mr. Mobology, Chair, I don't know if you're on. Okay, so I would. Hello?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, sir. So for me, I'm interested in this for you in particular. If you were to go back in time, when you were fresh out of law school, what would you do differently from what you've done before?
That's a very interesting question, because I currently don't regret. But I what I have done differently. I'm so sorry, but I don't think I have any regrets. I think everything I've done so far, I think I'm happy with all my decisions so far. Um, I really can't think of anything I would do differently, to be honest.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah.
How about you? How about you, Mark?
I would have been less afraid. I think I was very afraid as a young lawyer. I was afraid to make mistakes. I was like, oh, can't do that. Surely they expect me to know it all. I've just come out of law school. Surely they expect me to be fresh and hot with everything. And so I had this fear of making mistakes, and I wish I didn't, And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the first 3 to 5 years of your career should be full of mistakes. because once you make a mistake, if you're paying attention, you never make it more than once. So make your mistakes, learn from them, and get better. You shouldn't, if you're making a mistake twice, it's not a mistake anymore because you're not paying attention. So I think that what I did was I had this fear, this constant fear, and it might not have shown externally, but it was something that I battled. I battled this fear of making mistakes, this fear of not showing vulnerability, not letting people know that, oh, I actually don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to find someone who can, explain this to me and teach me this in the next 20 minutes. That was something that I was very afraid of. I'm not saying wear it on your sleeve and walk around the office looking like you don't know anything, but don't be afraid to say, okay, can I get some guidance here? I don't have a lot of clarity, or I don't have a lot of visibility in this regard. Can you direct me in the right place? Or, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to get help. That was something I think I struggled with.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I would want to align with you. Yes, sir.
So sorry. So as I was thinking about the question, and I think I want to tie it into mentorship. So it's not like a regret, but just like a learning curve for people who are listening about mentorship. So I remember when I wanted to start my NYSC, I had gotten 2 job offers. One was in a law firm and one was in a tech company. The tech company was going to pay significantly higher than the law firm. And of course, I would have gone to the tech company because, I wanted to earn more money so I could buy the latest iPhones and things like that. But then I had spoken to a mentor of mine, a woman, Mrs. Folashade Moyofalayi, and I told her of these opportunities. And she said, Bolaji, go and work for the law firm. I said, Amma, these tech companies pay me more, yada, yada, and things like that. It's a small team. I will rise faster. This one is a full firm. Before I become partner, maybe 20 years, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if you go and work for a law firm, you'll get both work experience and legal experience. If this firm you will do litigation, you will do all areas of commercial law. So that at the end of your 1 year, you'll have experienced all areas of law to be able to determine what areas of law you think you're good at, or what areas of law you think you want to specialize in. And if you're looking for a job somewhere else, no matter what they're asking for, you can say, yes, I've done it before. But if you go and work for this tech company, all you would have is tech law experience. And if you want to pivot later in future, it'll be extremely difficult for you. And that was a decision that I took her advice. And then my parents said, go with this woman's advice. And I went into the law firm instead. And I think that has really helped me to date. So that goes back into mentorship. Maybe that's why I really don't have so much things I would have changed, because then I already had mentors, and this was also because I had done internships when I was at university and I'd built relationships with people from different companies who were already guiding me as I was doing my journey up until this very moment. So yeah, mentorship is important.
Yeah, thank you. I would second that. Mentorship is actually very, very important. And also, trying your best to also be vulnerable. Not too long ago, if I were to be given a task by my partner and I'm not so clear on it, most times it'll be difficult for me to admit. I'll just be like, yes, sir. And then, the next few minutes afterwards, I'm like, running helter-skelter for help. So, mentorship is important, and also, trying your possible best to be confident and to, be vulnerable, and, you can't know everything, so ask for help. So as we get towards the end of, this session, I would like to sort of give you like an opportunity to share with us what key lessons that we should take away. If there's one particular thing you want members of the audience to take away from the session today, what exactly would that be? Let's start with so ladies first. So let's start with you, Mo.
Right. Okay. Key lessons. I would say that as a young lawyer, especially the new wigs, I think have a teachable spirit. It goes a long way. And for me personally, when I'm interviewing young lawyers these days, I'm not really looking for what you've done in the past. Not necessarily. It helps, sometimes. But I'm looking for how hungry you are for work, how excited you are about work, how teachable you are, how much you are willing to soak in your legal experience. I said earlier that you can't blag your way through a legal career. It's not something you can do passively. You have to be all in. And so I think having a teachable spirit is very important, because someone that has a teachable spirit is willing to learn. Someone that has a teachable spirit is enthusiastic. And anybody that works with you is happy to work with you, happy to teach you, happy to provide with whatever support you require. And what that also does for you and your career is you have somehow gained a sponsor. Someone is mentioning your name behind closed doors because they've worked with you and they've seen that this guy is efficient, this girl is excited, and she's bringing a lot of efficiency to the table, right? So I would say teachable spirit. I would also say in today's world, it's becoming increasingly important for lawyers to have a keen sense of business acumen. It's not enough for you to be a lawyer and know the law. You need to also understand the bottom line for your client. You need to understand your client's strategy and what they're trying to achieve fundamentally, and then apply the law to that. So yes, be a good lawyer, but you need to understand the business sense of things, not just business of law in terms of running your own law firm, but also in delivering your services to your client. So I would say maybe those two things, are things that I would say people should take away today. And rest, please rest, please rest. No burnout. Let's rest.
Yeah,
Let's do the thinking of rest.
I second that. I second that. Having rest is really, really important. I noticed whilst you were speaking, Mr. Mubalaji was nodding to, understanding the business of law and, being a legal entrepreneur. I'm sure he resonated with that a lot. So Sarah, please, share with us one key thing you'd like, members of the audience to take away from, this session.
I think if I would summarize my thoughts, it would be every day of your life, there are two important things that determine success: character and competence. If you have all the competency, but you have a not so great character, it would impede your growth. If you have a great character, you do not have the necessary competence, it would also impede your growth. Character on one hand is, for example, emotional intelligence, like she said. Another thing I realize is a lot of people don't have patience when dealing with their juniors, And for me, when I realize that I have somebody who isn't extremely patient with their juniors, it begins to worry me about the person's capacity to lead, because leadership requires a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and sometimes juniors can be a bit take time to learn certain things. I think that's also important. And so when people are making decisions on who to put in a leadership position, and they are the person who is well known to be always shouting, always, speaking unprofessionally towards people, and there's somebody else who is very professional, who's very patient, who's very courteous in the work environment. If the both of you have the same competency, the other person who has the better character will be picked. So patience is important, emotional intelligence is important, leadership capabilities is important in terms of character, integrity. When you say something, let me go to bed with it. Let me not second guess. Let me not be asking myself, am I sure? Let me not be fact checking what you say. Let me know when you say something. Integrity is important, and integrity is built, over a period of time where people can trust you. Honesty, sincerity, those are very important skills that you must have as a lawyer. Your client must be able to hear you say, "Client, go to bed," and the client says, "Okay, no problem, I'm going to bed." Not, "This is my lawyer that said I should go to bed. Am I sure that my client is my lawyer saying X, Y, Z?" That's on the side of character. On the side of competence is, like she had said also, business acumen is also important. And I will always encourage people, in as much as you want to binge on Netflix and Amazon Prime, when you're done from work, which is extremely important. But I would also advise, please take time out. In the morning when you're getting ready for work, tune to CNBC Africa, for example, watch the business report. Arise does something also too. Channels does 15, 20 minutes. If you're on an Uber to work, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just what's going on in the world, what's the market saying today? Very important, just little things here and there. There's this bookshop at Landmark. Go there, buy a copy of Africa Report, read it, what's going on in Africa, what are businessmen doing across Africa. Read it, just even if you are reading it and it seems like it's Greek and Latin to you, just keep on reading it. You are building your reservoir of business acumen and business knowledge. It would always come in handy one day. Just be commercially aware. I think that's the term. But when I'm doing interviews, I'm always looking out for the person's commercial awareness. Are you commercially aware? There's some lawyers, for example, on the other side of the law. I don't want to mention what side of the law they are at, who, things like inflation, they don't know what it means. Things like, if I ask them about the stock market, they're like, what's that? What's stock market? If you ask them about Eurobonds, they don't know what it means, and things like that. It's just cross-examination, evidence in chief, and things like that. So don't be that kind of lawyer who's just limited to one area of the practice. Whether you are the one who goes to court regularly or the one who sits in commercial transactions, ensure that you're commercially aware. I think another important thing is you must be able to think on your feet. So sometimes you might be an expert in a particular area, and then you're being called upon to give advice on another area of law that you're not an expert in. The ability to think on your feet and give an answer immediately can determine whether or not you close a particular transaction. For example, you might be an energy lawyer, for example, and they are playing golf on the golf course, and they run into somebody who is starting up a tech company, and he asks you a few questions there, and then you're like, oh, I'm not a tech lawyer, I have zero idea of this. How do you hold on that conversation with that person to pull the person as a client into your firm to then hand over to the partner in charge of technology? So you must have those little information to be able to discuss with that person enough to say, okay, now I brought you in as a client. I have somebody in charge of technology who will now manage your work. So it's important as a lawyer to know everything, about everything or anything about everything. It's extremely important. I think in summary, character, competence, one is not more important than the other one. They go hand in hand. If you're a person of character and you have the competency, I'm telling you, the sky is just the beginning. You will go very far in life. I think that's where I'll just end my own thoughts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your experience with us and giving us insights. On behalf of the NBA-SBL Young Lawyers Committee, I'd like to thank the both of you for taking out the time from your very, very busy schedules to speak with us. And I personally will stay in touch, and I would sort of request members of the audience who probably have questions or requests to make to sort of reach out like via LinkedIn if you have additional questions. And thank you for your time once again. Do have a lovely day, and we will definitely be in touch, being the NBA-SBL Young Lawyers Committee. All right. Bye.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we have some council members.
Mr. Endurance.
Oh, it's dropped off.
Okay, so I think we have some council members on here. So I know I saw council member. I think that's what he wanted to speak.
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
I think, okay, here he comes.
Okay, yes, he is back.
Mr. Endurance, can you hear us? Okay, let me just do that for him. So I wanted to take a special opportunity to thank all the members of council of the Nigerian Bar Association Section of Business Law who are currently here on the call. We thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to hold this webinar. I'm speaking as chair of the Young Lawyers Committee, thanking you on behalf of my committee for allowing us to do this, and also taking our time to join us on this call. We hope that we've done you well. and we promise to do greater things in future. The person who moderated is Gregory Yinka Greg, who is currently the Assistant Secretary of the Young Players Committee under the SBL. I don't know if Endurance has anything he wants to say, or if any council member has anything they want to add before we round up the call. Okay, Mr. Endurance is back.
Yes, it is.
I'm fine. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. I'm good. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. All right then. Greg, you can round up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And that'll be all. Do have a nice day and enjoy your weekend.